Tom Robinson was the captain of the Blues. He could have become an All Black, but he had a secret.
Suddenly I started feeling these little sensations, these little aches in my neck. And I thought, I'm getting headaches.
Concussion after concussion, and then a wave of anxiety that just didn't let up.
I think it was 2021 where I had 3 concussions in a row.
Tom has been through the most incredible transformation. He's no longer playing rugby. Instead, he's teaching yoga.
And what I realized was that all my anxiety, all my fears, all my grief was coming from identifying with these thoughts about the future or the past.
Tom's story is about facing your fears and finding the courage to make big changes.
And if I can just learn to live life in the present moment, then there's actually nothing to fear.
Tom, so many Kiwi boys just dream of becoming an All Black. Where did your All Black dream come from?
Well, my dad was an All Black, so I grew up aspiring to be an All Black and just loved it, frothed it. I was telling someone the other day, we didn't have Sky, so Dad and I would wake up sometimes at 3 a.m, drive to someone's house to watch the All Blacks play.
That's dedication.
To watch the All Blacks play, yeah, 3 a.m. when they were in Europe.
Did you think that could be you one day?
Yeah, I always just thought it was going to happen. I just had this belief I was going to play for Northland, play for the Blues, and play for the All Blacks. Well, I started playing when I was 4 years old, and I'm assuming it just came from my dad. I remember saying to him, "Why do we have to stop for summer? Why can't we just play rugby all year round?" So I think that's where it started, and then suddenly I became aware that I could do this for a job, for a living, and I was never the most physically talented. Like I finished school at like 80 kilos, probably this height, and so I knew it was going to take a lot of hard work and dedication.
When you got to the Blues, what did you discover?
I was living the dream. Yeah, it was, because when I was playing for Northland, it was amazing, but it wasn't full time. And I was studying half the year, then going and playing NPC for the other half. But when I made the Blues, it was like, I can do this all year round. And this is the big stage. You know, not the biggest stage, but it was a big deal. I was a full-time professional rugby player, living my dream.
And what is that life really like? What does it involve?
It's mentally draining. It can be. It was for me.
Because?
I shouldn't say it is, but it can. The pressure to perform, which only I put on myself. I guess any professional sport does, because if you don't perform, you're out. Now when I reflect back, I would ask myself, well, why does it matter if I'm dropped? You know, why does it matter if I'm not a professional rugby player? But at the time, when I was in the thick of it, yeah, that was like worst case scenario was you get dropped. You don't have a contract. You don't get to play anymore.
So where was your motivation coming from? Was it, I want to be the best rugby player that I can be? Or was it, I need to prove something to my dad, I've got this family name, I've got people that have invested in me, there's all these thousands of people in the stands? Where was the motivation to play actually coming from?
What I've become aware of now, post-rugby, was there are times in my life where I felt a sense of lack, where I wasn't enough, and my way of compensating was fame and fortune. So what started as a 4-year-old kid is just pure joy and love, just running around. My sense of self then realised I can use this to fill that inner void.
So why did you feel like you needed to prove yourself to other people? Why did you feel like you were lacking something?
A lot of it was from high school. So I realised there was a stage where I didn't really... Well, the biggest one was probably I was this lanky, ginger kid. I never kissed a girl, never had a girlfriend never had intimacy with a woman until I left school. And I remember being like teased about it, you know, you haven't kissed a girl. And at that stage in my life, like going back then, I didn't have the tools or ability to deal with that emotion. It was embarrassing, you know. You're in high school and you've been teased. Probably also been ginger, you know. There were times in life, like I laugh. It's funny now. Like I'm so happy to laugh about it.
It's not funny when you're a teenager.
No,
though.
no, it's not.
So when you became a professional rugby player at quite a young age, did you think, okay, I can build my identity around this, I can get some credibility, some acceptance, some love, some social status from this job?
Unconsciously, yes. I wasn't aware at the time. If we had this interview 5 years ago, I'd say I just love it. I'm just doing it for the joy of it. But if I was doing it for the joy of it, why did I feel this pressure?
Did you ever think about the risks of playing rugby? Were you aware of risks, or were you like 10 foot tall and bulletproof like most young men?
When I was younger, my dad was coaching a Northland under 15 team, and there was a boy there that had a concussion. I was watching the game, and he ended up having a brain bleed and was lucky to live. He had to learn to walk and talk again. And when I had that first concussion, I was so afraid that was going to happen to me. And I was upset. I was scared. And I remember for so long being afraid to go back to that field where the incident happened to this guy, because I was afraid that would happen to me.
So as the years went on, how did that anxiety about concussions show up in your life?
Well, so fast forward to my first year of NPC in Northland, and it was my first year, and it was a preseason game, and I had a concussion, went off, and everything was fine. A couple of days afterwards, I was feeling fine, everything was sweet. And we went on a rugby camp, and our doctor gave this presentation about the effects of concussions and the long-term effects, you know, CTE, that sort of things. And suddenly I started feeling these little sensations, these little aches in my neck. And I thought, I'm getting headaches. Any time in training or in the game, I'd get a hit to the head, my mind would go, oh, was that a concussion? And I go, well, do I feel slowed down? And suddenly it was like, oh, I do, because I'm in the middle of a game, you know, so I'd go, oh, that was a concussion. I'd just walk off. So it was from that moment onwards where I became really sensitive, because I started to look for symptoms. That was when it really started to spiral. In actual fact, it was when I met with an ex-player who has long-term damage, and he was doing it purely out of looking after me, and obviously thought I had a few concussions. But he told me a few things that he'd asked me, like, oh, do you ever wake up, do you ever have bad sleeps? Do you ever finish in the gym, like get lightheaded? So suddenly I started looking for those things. So I'd finish a big, you know, heavy squat, 300 kilo, no, kidding. And I'd go, oh, do I feel, oh yeah, I do. Oh, I'm getting something. No, you're just making that up. Or I wake up in the middle of the night, need to go toilet, and not be able to get back to sleep and think, I'm not sleeping properly. So it just started to spiral.
And what were you actually worried about? What was the biggest fear?
The biggest fear was long-term damage. Yeah, not being able to function. But in actual fact, again, that's what I would have told you at the time. But now, the fear really was what people would think, what people would say. That's what I realized at the moment. The actual fear was people would say, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Or why did you do that? Now look what you're experiencing. Yeah, that was it. The fear of judgment.
And how did you deal with that?
I didn't deal with it.
Just kept playing?
Just kept going. Didn't talk to anyone because I knew it was in my mind. So if I told people I'm getting these symptoms, people would probably think, oh, he's getting concussion symptoms. And I just thought I was always I'm going to get through this. I'm going to work out, I'm going to find the answer.
And how was your performance on the field during all of this?
Well, it probably didn't really show until my last year of Super Rugby. So I got to the point in Blues where my last season I got dropped because I was becoming hesitant at contact. Like I was so afraid of having a little hit to the head because I didn't want to go through that battle again.
So you're almost physically protecting yourself
Yeah.
while you're meant to be throwing yourself in
Yeah.
to the game.
Yeah.
Most players are desperate to be selected. Is it true that you actually feigned physical injuries to try and not get selected?
Yeah. Yeah. So I started to pull out. I started to have these, as I said, any little hit to the head, and I couldn't handle that uncertainty, so I'd walk off at trainings, and I started to miss a lot of games. And then I became anxious about that because I didn't want to have to go through, Tom's pulled out this week because of a knock to the head, and people would start to suspect it. But I couldn't handle it, and I faked a hamstring injury.
You faked a hamstring injury?
Yeah, yeah. I pretended that I'd done my hamstring because I was like, I need time to make sure that my head's okay. I'm not going to go play this weekend.
Tell me why you couldn't feel confident to share any of this with your coaches or even other people in your life. Why was it so difficult to speak up about?
Because I didn't want to admit that I wasn't in control of my mind. I felt I was so mentally strong and resilient, and I could push myself. Like when it came to fitness testing, like I seriously would push myself, and I believe a lot of it was just what I labelled then mental strength. I didn't want to admit that I had this. Again, judgment, what other people would think, being afraid of people seeing, I guess, as a weakness or what people would say.
So you went to Japan to play over there. What happened when you got to Japan?
And I was just like, okay, I've got 3 years. I'm just going to go there. I'm just going to live with this. I'm just going to get through it, and I'm going to cash up and come home and retire. I remember getting to training one day, and I just had this thought of, had I brushed my teeth? And I couldn't visualize myself brushing my teeth, so I thought, I'm getting memory loss. And the same thing happened when I took the rubbish out. I come back in, and did I take the rubbish out? And because I couldn't visualize it, but obviously during those instances, my mind was just going constantly, am I getting headaches? Am I not? Am I getting symptoms? My sleep was out. Obviously, I'm sleeping bad. I'm getting symptoms. And I remember when I'm going and watching the boys play and was driving home in my camper, and my awning fell off the camper and just on the middle of the road. I turned around. I was just like parked in the middle of the road, blocking up traffic, just picking up this thing in pieces and putting it into my van. And I just got into the van and I called the family chat and just said, I can't take this anymore. And I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't hide this.
How did your coaches respond when you told them the truth finally?
Man, I have like so much gratitude for the way that they took it. I went into Steve Hansen was our director of rugby, and I told him what I was experiencing. And the coaches, trainers, like at the time, I couldn't have asked for a better reception from them. They were so supportive. They arranged for me to see that same specialist again, just to make sure that my brain was healthy. And then I spoke to the specialist and told him what I was experiencing, and we pretty much came to the conclusion that it was anxiety, what the symptoms I was having, which is an ironic thing, is the symptoms of anxiety and concussions are the same. Memory loss, things like that.
So this was the end of your playing career. Did you know that was going to be the way that it played out, or did you think I'm going to go away and try and get into a better place and come back?
I was desperate to go find answers so I could come back and play freely again. I wanted to play for the coaches and the team because of how supportive they had been. And for myself, just to be able to be free again from the mind.
So what did you do during that off-season?
So during that time, which I call for me was the lowest I'd been in, if it wasn't for my practices of yoga, meditation and journaling, no doubt in my mind, I feel, become very depressed. So I just thought, well, let's go learn more about yoga. This is obviously helping me mentally. So I just signed up to a month-long yoga and tantra teacher training course.
What did you learn there?
Man, I had no idea what I was walking into. Like, I was not prepared. I still had that mindset of, this is woo-woo.
Yeah.
But what the most thing I got out of that training was I got introduced to this concept that you're not your mind, you're not your body. And I'm thinking, what? I'm not my mind? I'm not these thoughts? Like, okay, I can get around that because my thoughts are not very helpful at the moment. But my body, like, how am I not my body? And then this one girl, she said, your body is just your vehicle. You look after it. You put the best fuel in it. You take it for warrants. You service it. But ultimately, it's just a vehicle for something greater.
So you did this yoga training and then you made a decision to not go back to professional rugby.
I called Steve up and said, Steve, this is what I'm thinking. He said, Tom, just give it another couple of weeks. I said, all right, I'm just going to go for it for these 2 weeks. Just try and really, really embrace this, embrace the whole experience of Japan, which was cool to go back for those 6 weeks and just be like, be free enough that I could just go and travel and really enjoy it. But I got to the end of it and I just told him, I said, I'm doing it. I'm going to retire.
What did he say?
Again, good on you, son. All right, let's do it. We'll call you. I had to call my agent up, tell him again, so supportive. And like everyone, just so supportive.
So from that little boy growing up in Northland, running around the paddock, wanting to be an All Black, what did it feel like when you finally made that decision? I'm pulling the plug. I'm done. I'm retiring. And that full fruition of that dream is never going to happen.
It wasn't an easy decision because of what rugby had given me. Like it was an incredible stage in my life. I played it since I was 4 years old. Loved it. But in a way, it was such an easy decision because my heart was just no longer in it. And what I realized was that all my anxiety, all my fears, all my grief, all my stress was coming from identifying with these thoughts about the future or the past. And if I can just learn to live life in the present moment, then there's actually nothing to fear.
You have an alarm on your phone that goes off every hour?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. I got introduced to this technique called pausing, where you try and generate as many pauses as you can throughout the day. And the reason being is that most of the time we are unconscious. We unconsciously identify with our thoughts and our emotions. And to try and be aware of all your thoughts and your emotions is very difficult. So this technique is around pausing, where you literally just try and generate as many pauses as you can throughout the day. These can be naturally occurring pauses, like when you stop at a red light, you're waiting for the kettle to boil, or they can be created pauses. So this technique was you set an alarm a few times throughout the day and you just stop and just pause for 3 minutes.
Because often when the kettle's boiling, I'll go, right, this is a perfect opportunity to jump on the phone, go on a news website, check my email. That sense of being always on and always connected, what impact do you think that has on our mental health?
Yeah, I think it's a cause of all our suffering, is unconsciousness and identifying with those thoughts and those emotions.
And what about journaling?
Yeah, journaling has been very powerful for me. So I have a practice in the mornings and in the evenings. In the mornings, my practice is I just start with gratitude and I write about the plan. But the plan is not so much what I want to do, it's how I want to be, which is present. Then I write things around things to be aware of, which is, I guess, is triggers, any fears that I have, and then just a gentle reminder. But the evening practice of journaling has been, for me, the most profound. And what I do is whatever emotion I've experienced that day, like the strongest, whatever happened that generated the most emotion, whether it was thought, whether it was an experience, I just ask myself, why? Why? Why did that stress me out? Why did I feel that? And I just go, why, until something pops up.
You'd come from a rugby environment that's often seen as quite blokey and macho. There's this image of rugby players being staunch and stoic and not showing emotion. Was this whole area a complete field of new discoveries for you? Was it quite different to the environments that you'd been in previously?
Yeah, it was. To be fair, the environment I was always in, there was always this, you would be accepted, but you'd get ripped out. Like you'd get the piss taken out of you, but there was always that kind of like, it wasn't like you'd be discarded from the group. But yeah, it was a huge revelation. Like I remember it being so uncomfortable to tell my dad I loved him. And then now to be able to say it every time I see him. Like it was a huge shift.
How does your mental health feel today compared to those really, really difficult days back in Japan?
Yeah, I don't even know how to answer it.
Night and day.
Yeah. I can't even believe how I was living. I can't even believe how I've lived the last 7 years compared to now.
Do you still watch rugby?
No, I don't. I've been to a Blues game this year. Really enjoyed it. Love connecting with the people. Went to a Northland game, same. And it's nothing against rugby. Like if anyone wants to play it, I would say go for it. The protocols are in place to keep people safe. I was kept safe during, but it's just that chapter just feels like it's closed.
So from that little boy growing up in Northland, getting so much joy from running around and kicking a ball, where does your joy and your contentment come from today?
Just the present moment. Like the other day, just sitting at home on the deck, just watching the bees go fly around the flowers, the wind through the native trees, just being able to sit there and observe that and the joy that brought me, just the simple things in life.
Tom, thank you for sharing these moments with me today. It's been awesome to hear your story.
Thanks. It's my pleasure, brother, and I really enjoyed connecting with you.
Awesome. All the best.
Thanks, brother. Lots of love.